first of all, just welcome to everybody. For those who've not been on a Ripcaster live event before, my name is John Nelson, and this is Ripcaster. We're a Linn Climax dealer based between Reading and Oxford, about 45 miles west of London. So tonight I thought, well, what can we do? And 20 ways to listen to Linn seemed like a fair title. It sounded okay. So there must be 20 ways to listen to Linn. And in fact, there are lots of different ways to listen to Linn. And so the way that I'll structure this is we'll just go through and we'll look at all the different sources and the way that we control Linn and the different ways that we can access music through our Linn system. There's a lot going on. It's a live demonstration. I expect something will go wrong, but let's see what happens. This one we're going to obviously start with is the classic LP12. And so if I switch to this camera, we have got over here an accurate level LP12 connected to an accurate DSM and a pair of Acubaric passive speakers through an accurate, well, it's a 4200, but we're just using 2 channels on that amplifier. And obviously, this is the middle tier deck within Linn's range. It's got the new carousel bearing, which is the current latest upgrade to the LP12. So a current spec accurate LP12 is crystal cartridge, Akito tone arm, core subchassis, carousel bearing, Lingo power supply, Lingo 4 power supply, and that's it. But obviously, this is an evolution of the deck that Linn have been making since 1973. And we're going to play this through the accurate DSM, and we're using the built-in phono stage. So there we are. Source number 1. And that could be it. We could stop there. That could be the whole of your world. But Linn will do much more. You can play many, many more different sources through the Linn. But we'll stick with analog sources for now. And we'll stick with some of the traditional formats. So we've done vinyl. So we'll go one after that. So we'll play CD. So we've got an accurate LP12 on the bottom here and a select DSM on the top. But on the accurate DSM, you've got multiple different inputs. So we've got down here, we've got our phono inputs, and we've got a choice here of moving magnet or moving coil, depending on which way the card is internally. And then we've got various different digital inputs and outputs, coaxial, optical, and we've got balanced outputs. This is a full DSM with analog outputs as well as inputs. And we've got various HDMI inputs, etc. And we'll cover some of those later as we go on. So what we're going to use now is one of the, as it happens, another analog input, and we're going to play a CD player through that analog input. But we could have got down here a good old faithful, if we can get into this, we've got our one of the good old faithful Unidisc players. Simple as put the media in, press play, and we will get the content coming out on the device. So if I go back to my Mac computer, I'm using Kazoo here, and I can check my Unidisc player, and we should get some music out of that. Okay, so there we are. 2 sources, nice and simple. Put a needle on the record, we get music. Put the CD in the unit, press play, select the source, we get music. All very simple, nice and easy to do. There's one more analog format that I thought we would also cover, and this is just a little indulgence, really. Behind me, we've got a select DSM. We've got a Revox B77 reel-to-reel tape recorder, and we're driving a pair of Kudos Titan 505 speakers. And this happens to be, as you can see, the select DSM here. We've got the lid off it, and it's got two amplifier cards in it. These are a two-way speaker, so we're actually driving these in an exact fashion directly from a single select. And we've got the tape machine, the Revox B77. That's a straight analog device. That's connected directly into, if I look to the back of the select DSM, so we've got a select DSM here, and all that we're doing is we're using these analog inputs here, line level inputs into the select DSM to play the Revox. This is purely my self-indulgence here. This is no ordinary Revox. We're in the modern world, so we've got an iPad-controlled Revox here. So if I press play here, we can control the Revox using a little app. If you notice over there's a little Raspberry Pi, little computer that controls a relay in the back of the Revox. So if I press play, away it goes. A bit of fun, something to do with the Raspberry Pi. And again, we can listen to another analog sources via the DSM. 3 analog sources through this system. So we did the LP12 through the accurate DSM using the internal phono stage. We did a CD player, again using an analog, but it could have been a digital input if we wanted to, through into the accurate DSM. And then we've gone another analog source, a Revox B77 tape reel-to-reel, directly into the select DSM. The majority of people who have got DSMs and DSs originally will have come to it from a streaming perspective. And so the first port of call for streaming, again, perhaps with a historical context, was playing back from local storage. So we'll just demonstrate this now. I'll switch back to my Mac, and I will select the what's called the Revox room, the system behind me, and I'll click in the top left here, and I can look at my sources. And I happen to have a music local server here running Linn's kazoo server, and I've obviously got my whole library here, and I can go in and I can pick a particular album, and I can play a particular track, and it will send that digital stream from my local machine server directly to the device. From a local NAS, obviously the interesting thing about this is that it's a high-res file, so we've gone beyond CD quality. It's not 192, which is our highest quality, but it's a 24-bit 96 kilohertz sample file. So we're getting very good fidelity out of the playback now. There are other servers available, so you can obviously have things like Minim server or Asset UPnP or Bubble UPnP. There's various different servers, and the Linn will pick the content up and allow you to play that however you wish. The next one that we'll go to, obviously, is if we go back to the Mac. So again, some other of my sources is obviously we've got online services. So this is where the content, we're playing a subscription to, in this case, Tidal. And we've got millions of albums available, and we can just search for what we want to listen to. It goes off across the internet, finds every album a particular someone's done, and again I can play the content, and it available at different qualities. So Tidal currently goes up to CD quality for Linn. MQA is available for other manufacturers. But if you use other services like Quobus, for example, then again, you can get high-res files. And we can mix and match. So if I put, so currently we've got down here, we've got the Alison Krauss and Robert Plant playing, and that's coming off our network drive. But I can add another item into our queue to make up a playlist. And so we've got a queue which is playing from our NAS, and then it's going to play from an online service. Obviously, the benefit of the online service is you've got a massive library available as long as you keep paying your subscription, but you don't actually own the music. So that's our source or our way of playing number 5. So from an online subscription service directly integrated within the Linn app, which is currently Quobus or Tidal. Source number 6 is obviously internet radio, and Linn give you 2 shortcuts as the actual radio button in the app, which is effectively your favorites on a TuneIn account. If we look in config, so this is the configuration page that we use to set the device up. If I change the device to the Revox room, which is that one that we're looking at right now, and I look in my sources and radio, by default, there are various presets that Linn use. This is on a worldwide default at the moment, but if I change it to UK, those presets change for a more UK-centric set of streams. But this is actually a TuneIn account, so you can put in your TuneIn account in here. So that's the actual one that we're using, which is the account that Linn published. But you can put your own personal TuneIn account here, and you will then get your own customized list of radio stations. You create a free TuneIn account on the tunein.com website. You listen to select stations within the TuneIn web interface or phone interface. You add them to your favorites within TuneIn, and then if you then put your username into the Linn config in this section here, TuneIn username, this page will then reflect your own favorites that you are creating. So that was source or way of playing number 6. So that was internet radio. And that obviously you get the whole world's radio available, different quality levels. BBC Radio 3 is probably one of the best quality streams there are at 320 kilobits per second, but it's still MP3 format. And a lot of the others are quite low bandwidth signals, so perhaps not the best fidelity, certainly not as a dedicated FM tuner if you've still got one of those. The next one we are going to look at is specific to select DSM as it happens. So some of these features work across the whole board, and some of them are specific to select DSM. But if you look on the back of select DSM, you've got a couple of bespoke or unique features. So there's got a dedicated HDMI ARC connector that we'll come back to in a minute, but they've also got this USB in here. So if we go over here, I've got in the back of that select DSM, I've got a USB cable. So here we've got an AudioQuest USB cable going straight into the back of the DSM. And on my Mac here, we've got that set up as the source. So it's going directly to I've set the output directly to the DSM. Inputs, USB. Okay. So I've got the signal going directly out of a USB source straight into. Switch the right camera. There we go. So we've got we happen to be using Adobe Audition, playing a music file on here, and that's going directly over USB straight into the back of the select DSM. And it tells us what it's going in at USB 48 kHz, 24-bit PCM. I'm not going to demonstrate this next one, we're just going to talk about it. If I switch to our view of the back of the DSM, on the accurate DSM we've got these HDMI sources, inputs, and those are direct HDMI inputs, so we could plug a Blu-ray player in there, a set-top box, or any HDMI source, Xbox or something like that. And in the default configuration, as long as that's providing PCM, then you will be able to play it through the actual system. There is an additional card that you can put in this, which will give you native decoding, and we'll look at that in a minute on our Climax DSM that we've got set up. But basically, you can listen to any HDMI source, as long as it's put in the right output in the standard unit, or if you've got the Dolby decoder in, then it will obviously do native decoding. So 4 inputs and 1 output on the accurate DSM. And on the select DSM, there's a module which sits in this blank space, which gives you additional HDMI ports and decoding as well. So we're cracking through these now at a vast rate of knots. The next one I'm going to show you is a bit legacy, and Linn obviously are continually evolving their software, and some software they bring with, and some tends to get left behind. So I'm going to show you Songcast. Now, this Mac that I'm using here is using the latest Mac OS, and that's no longer supported by Songcast. So if you've got a previous version, I don't recall the exact version, but you still can use that, but we'll demonstrate this on a PC instead. So again, here I've got a virtual machine, and it's currently got, so this is a Windows 10 machine, and this is the Linn docs page, and it's unsupported, but then there's various older software, but Songcast for Windows PC still works. And what this basically does is convert your DSM into a virtual sound card. So normally on your computer, you have speakers directly attached or to your monitor, and the sound from your PC or computer goes to the locally attached speakers or to the HDMI out on your display. With a virtual, so what Songcast does is basically convert your DS into a virtual sound card. So if I go back over here, if I go into, I don't know, let's say bbc.co.uk/radio4, and let's say I want to listen live to, for whatever reason, via my computer. Or maybe not. Okay, here we go. In fact, what we'll do, let's be a bit more creative. So a better use case would be a podcast, for example. So, okay, let's try and listen to some of Louis Theroux. So this is our podcast, and currently that is being played locally on the computer speakers. With Songcast installed, it creates an icon in the dock, and currently, well, in fact it's already doing, but normally it's playing it to the computer, but I can, if I want, send it directly to a computer, and in this instance I've sent it to a Climax DSM behind me, and I've got volume control, and maybe we can just hear it now. Voice record.
We're having to rely on our guests to record their half of the conversation.
So what that's done is redirected the audio from the computer, which happens to be another part of the office, across the network, and he's playing out through our Climax DSM at the back.
Loud and clear. My guest today
is
a BAFTA-winning actor, and outspoken.
And turn it off. So that is an interesting feature that sometimes you can have works well, but you can have some problems with it. With most of these kind of technologies, a good network is critical for success. If your network is a bit flaky, these kind of things, you'll have joy, many hours spent trying to get it to work successfully. The key is to have a good quality network, ideally wired, probably try and avoid using home plugs if you can. But the better the quality of your network, the higher bandwidth you've got, the more likely you are to have success with these kind of things. With all these kind of things, there's usually 2 or 3 ways that you might be able to do it. So going back to the previous one where we had a direct USB connection from the Mac directly into the Select DSM. So you could have been playing content on your Mac and connected via USB if you were tethered, or as we're about to demonstrate or semi-demonstrate, the Select DSM also features Bluetooth connectivity. So if again, I'm not going to actually do this, but if I go into the menu on this unit, I can go into Connect. You can pair a device using Bluetooth. So this could be any Bluetooth device. So it could be something like your mobile phone. It could be something like an Astle & Kern product. But any Bluetooth source, you can then stream and connect and play through your system. So if somebody comes in with into the house and they've got a fantastic banging tune on their iPhone, you can tether it directly from their iPhone or their Android phone via Bluetooth directly to the Select DSM, and you can listen to that music. So it's again, not necessarily the best quality, but it's a great way of simple connectivity. All the Select DSMs shipped when they were initially released had both Bluetooth, and in fact the next thing we're going to talk about, which is Wi-Fi a bit later on, had that enabled in the hardware, but it was only enabled in the firmware on these probably, I don't recall now, but not too long ago, maybe just before Christmas. From AirPlay, so again, all of the devices all support playback via AirPlay. So if I get my, let me try and do this on a slightly closer camera, and I've got some music coming up here, and I can mirror that if I can work out where that goes. Yeah, here. So it shows me what devices are available to play back. So it's seeing all of these different devices as AirPlay devices. So it's seeing all of the Linn products that we've got in here, as well as an Apple TV. So if I wanted to, I could choose to play on the accurate DSM. In fact, let's put it on the Climax DSM. And we should, if we're lucky, have music playing on the Climax DSM. Okay, I can hear Coldplay on the Climax DSM over AirPlay. It's one of those things that is can be hit and miss, but is if it works, it works. But if it doesn't, you can struggle with it, can we think? That was AirPlay. Next up, Spotify Connect. So again, if I go into my iPad, let's go back onto this camera again. So again, I'm on my iPad. I go into Spotify, and I can play in here. And again, I am in the app, and if hopefully you can see that. But then I've got the option down here. This is all within Spotify itself. This is using Spotify Connect, which is a different connection method and more reliable, and is kind of implemented in the Linn itself. And again, I can select from whatever available units I've got. So again, I will choose to put it on the Climax DSM. So that is more reliable, and it's direct within the amp itself. We're up to about number 12, I think, from what I can see on my list. The Linn environment is, if I select Climax DSM, it tells me it still thinks it's playing from Spotify, as you can see here. But if I go and I will choose some music, and again, it can come from any source. So I will play a very good album, and that's playing on a single system. And I've got a single volume control. If I click at the top here, where my room name is, it shows me all the different systems I've got available. And if I click, we're controlling Climax DSM right now, if I click the plus sign here, it allows me to join the rooms together. And then the music is playing, or will be playing, in multiple rooms, in synchronization and with separate volume controls. And again, you can mute individual rooms, mute them all, or you can control individual room volumes. So that's how we get multi-room. You just add more Linn DS's and they'll automatically discover each other, and you can group them together. So I've got one room plus 3 others in this particular group. And if I want to take them out of the group, I just take them out like so. The ability to play music throughout the house by just grouping different DSMs together, and that works for any source. So if you had an LP12, for example, you could listen to that LP12 in another room by grouping them together. And you could even mute, let's say you had a sitting room with the LP12 in, and you had another room with a select DSM, for example, then you could be playing it in both rooms, different volume levels in different rooms, so you could mute it in the sitting room and continue listening to it in the other room. So there's lots of flexibility there to get the music all around the house, all in synchronization. What we've been listening to primarily so far has all been 2-channel stereo. Now, if we go back into our config and I change the room that we're looking at, and I look at the Climax DSM, got a Climax DSM, and it's got various, so we're using Kudos Titan 808 speakers at front, left and right, and we've got a Magic 112 as a center speaker. And we've created a virtual multi-channel environment. So if I go back to this, you will see when you go into config on this particular unit, you've got these extra menu options because it's got the Dolby decoding card built into it. And there are various configurations that you can add in here to set the speaker distances and distribute the sound, but you can also obviously do that via space optimization. So this particular device, we've physically got the card in. If I go to, we've also got an exakt box attached to it. And so the way this is configured, we are doing our front and left speakers directly out of the back of the Climax DSM. So that's our Titan 808s that we can see. And then the other channels, we're actually driving off an exakt box. So I've got an exakt box 10. So I've got 10 channels on a accurate exakt box 10, and I have assigned each of the channels. So it's a passive mode. I'm using Acubarics, as it happens, as my surround left and surround rights. Acubarics for my rear lefts and rear rights. I've got my Magic 112 speaker for the center. And just because we can, I've put two REL subwoofers for left and right subwoofer. So that system, if it actually existed, not all of it is physically there. We've just got the exact boxes and the front and center speakers. But if we fed it a multi-channel signal from a Blu-ray or from a set-top box, it would decode it into a multi-channel signal, and you'd get the full movie experience on a multi-channel video signal, either fed through from HDMI or one of the digital inputs carrying multi-channel signal. And that's available for Climax, Accurate, I think for any of the DSMs, Select DSM, and I think the Magic DSM as well. So that can make a very powerful, very neat multi-channel system out of a Linn system. And again, you've got the flexibility of how you configure or get the extra channels. You can do it with exact boxes using the passive crossover, do it exact box I, another powerful way of doing it, to get enough speakers and amplification to do the number of channels that you want. Or you can go the whole hog and do fully exact, externally exact, or internally integrated exact speakers like 350 Climax Exact, Acubaric Exact, Acudonic Exact, Series 5, 30s, 20s, and the new Series 3. So you've got the ability to mix and match passive and analog systems. Another new one, I will go back to our unit we've got here. So this Select DSM, as I mentioned before, has got Bluetooth and Wi-Fi built into it. So we've got no Ethernet cable in here right now. So this is operating via Wi-Fi. And so I can go into my, let's go into here. I can control it just as any other device. So I go in, select my what's called Wi-Fi room, and again let's play that track on there. And if we change to that camera, okay, so there we are playing that track streamed to the DSM over Wi-Fi. I'd always recommend, if you can go wired, you will always end up with a much more reliable and responsive system. If you've got good Wi-Fi, this is an option. Again, a good feature to have. Best quality is always wired for a more reliable system. Next, we have got, let's go back to this view again. This is another firmware change that Linn released. On the back of this Select DSM, we've got the SPDIF coaxial output here, and on the Accurate DSM, we've got digital inputs and outputs. Now, you can use a DSM as a source, a digital source to a third-party system. So if we look over here, what we have got there on top, there is a Select DSM. Let me just see if I can try and do this. This could be perilous. Okay, so if you notice, I've got another Select DSM, and there are no modules. There is no amplifiers. There is no source level cards. It's an empty chassis, so it's just a straight box, and it's connected to the speakers we've got them connected to are key. These are fully integrated active digital speakers, multiple drive units, 9 amps and speakers per unit, and we're using the coaxial output. So we've set the SPDIF on this Select DSM to an output, and that's been fed directly into those key digital speakers. And so we're now using the Linn purely as a front end to that key system. And again, it behaves in exactly the same way as any other Linn DSM. I can select, again, I've called this the key room. Seems like we're playing the same track everywhere, but I can play that one. And that's now playing that track directly on the DSM. As you can see, it's a very flexible, the DSM is an incredibly flexible piece of equipment that can work in a conventional system, with an exact system, or as a digital front end to somebody else's non-Linn system. Conventional analog system, we've got a power amp, a pair of speakers, and the accurate DSM acting as a source, streaming preamp. Select DSM here with the two modules driving these Kudos Titans in an exact mode. Then you've also got the option of over on the far here, we've got these integrated exact speakers. So these are a pair of Series 5s. These have got all the electronics for the amplifiers built in. So we just power each speaker and we send a digital signal to each speaker directly from the exact links on the back of the DSM. So in that instance, we would go on, if I switch to this link, you can see these twinkling away exact links here on the select DSM, or these 4 on here. That's how we would connect to a exact or exact box or a pair of integrated exact speakers. So we're at kind of at 18 and 19 now, and the last few things I wanted to talk about was control. The Linn offers a very, very flexible option to control. You can do something as simple as a simple IR control. Very handy, you know, press the button, press play, change your volume. On the newer remotes, this is a conventional silver one. On the newer ones, you've obviously got the pins, and you can preset these to whatever sources or playlists that you wish. Again, makes the systems very, very user-friendly, and that corresponds, those pins on the IR remote correspond to, on the select, these physical buttons on the top here correspond to the physical buttons on the outside of the IR remote. So you can preset your favorites to make it very easy. So just one push, okay, I want to play whatever it is. This one isn't configured, but you can set them, okay. You can set them to play presets. So you've got very flexible control. So something as simple as the IR remote control. And if you've got a playlist going, you can obviously move between the tracks just by hitting fast and forward. So you've got your shuttle controls. You've got obviously the ability to control the device using standard smartphones. So you've obviously got something, an Android device like this. So we've got the Android platform covered. So there we go. We're connected to our main system there. We've obviously got our iPad control, so Apple devices. We've got the same app available on there. Again, we've got the same app available on the Mac, so I can control it on my Mac. And we've also got the same app available on my PC. So again, I can, whatever platform I happen to use, I've got full control. And that's a fairly unique feature between manufacturers. So not everybody is able to boast that cross-platform compatibility. There is a new app which breaks all that. It's called the Linn app, which is currently only available for Apple devices, but I believe as they continue to develop that and make it more usable, it will also become cross-platform like the existing Kazoo. So my recommendation right now, stick with Kazoo and keep checking in what Linn app progress is till they've got all the features in there. Last one is third-party integration. So there are a number of platforms out there. So if you've got a whole house control system like Control 4 or Crestron or other systems like the Roon ecosystem. So Linn DS is, if you've got a Roon, that's a Roon server. Linn DSs appear as a Roon endpoint. So if you've got multiple manufacturers, whether it be Moon or Name or Rallic or Linn, they will all appear as under the same unified interface that you get via Roon. So it works with other control interfaces, sophisticated residential ones like Control 4 or Crest, but with Roon as well. 20, I think I've done 20 now. Questions are good.
With the integrated speakers that have got the amps already in,
yeah,
what's the difference in your estimation, John, between the sound that you get from having the amps inbuilt with the speakers or having using an exact box?
That's a good question.
Because obviously financially, it's probably a lot less money to go the exact box route, and it also sort of doesn't sort of lock you into having the speakers with everything in them.
That's also true. So there are a number of different ways you can look at it. You can look at it from absolute sound performance, what might give you the best sound. You can look at what gives you the neatest system and the most easy to live with in your house. You know, number of boxes, amount of wires. You can look at it as from a point of view of, you know, an Acubaric integrated exact speaker is 27,500. Okay, that's a big chunk of money, and not everybody has got that amount of money to invest in one chunk. So going the other route, you've got incremental ways to get there. So you can, you know, add an exact box, add a power amp, add an exact box I. You've got much more flexibility in the way that you upgrade systems, but it all depends. I mean, I recommend you come and listen to them, yeah, and decide for yourself where the best price performance you get and the most aesthetic, livable system that you get with the system. Yeah, and obviously, if you've got legacy systems, so if you've got some older, I don't know, there's a pair of cables in the back over there. If you add an exact box onto those, they sound fantastic. So you can get a lot of value out of older equipment and get quite a significant performance enhancement by continuing to update your system. So from a passive to, let's say, an active system in the early 90s, or, well, earlier than that, 70s, 80s, 90s, with active cards in amps, yeah, through to exact systems now, you can still use quite a lot of that technology with an exact system, with an exact box.
Because I'm just kind of sorry, John, that you're not anywhere closer to Edinburgh.
There are lots of good Linn dealers all around the country. We're all just about to unlock. Yeah. So yeah, go and see your local dealer. They need your support. Of course, if you're coming near us, yeah, come and visit us. Give us a call. We'll book you in. And
I'd come and see you, John, even though you do sound to be coming from the wrong side of the Pennines.
I'm originally a Lancastrian. I hope you don't hold that against me.
No, I'm a Yorkshireman.
Oh dear, hard luck.
Interesting, John. Really appreciate your help with all that. Could I ask one other question? Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Going on. If you need to go get your tea, I know, but
no, I'm fine. It's what everybody else wants to
do. When it comes to, so supposing I went down the Accurate hub with the Accurate Exact Box I,
yeah,
and I'm keeping my Kayleys.
Yeah, perfect.
Do the Kayleys need to be adapted in any kind of way to go sort of active?
Well, you just need to bypass the crossover. So you need to do the same modification that you do for going active.
I think that's probably already been done then, John.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And you see those Kudos speakers that you've got.
Yeah.
I know people seem to rave about the Kudos Super 20s.
Yep.
What do you have to? Am I right in thinking that it's just basically plug and play if you got like Kudos and things like that?
Well, we have done this before, but this is a Kudos Titan 505, but they all use a similar crossover. Let me just turn that around and move that camera. So on the Titans and on the Super 20s, they all use this crossover. So if I had a conventional passive amplifier, I would put my speaker cables in on these terminals here.
Yeah.
Let me just put that down there. And normally they have these jumpers.
Okay, yeah.
So they link. So if all the jumpers are in, like so, that's the speaker in a passive configuration.
Yeah.
All right. If I take those out, I can then drive them directly using, that's the bass driver, and that's the tweeter driver. So one of the reasons, not only are they fantastic speakers, one of the reasons they're popular with Linn dealers and name dealers, etc., is that because they're a two-way speaker and the 808s are a three-way speaker, you can go fully exact or externally exact with a Kudos speaker with a Exact Box 6 or a Climax Exact Box.
Yeah.
And so it's not the 10 channels that the Aki Barracks require, for example.
John, when are you reopening to public?
So we've been doing servicing, remote servicing throughout lockdown, and we'll open on Monday the 15th for appointments. So I think most hi-fi dealers are now going to be operating an appointment system. We're based in a little village on the Chilterns. Yeah. We don't get much passing trade anyway, so it isn't really much change for us. People will come in, they'll have the place to themselves. Well, I hope you enjoyed it. It was a bit chaotic at times, but I think more or less it all worked. I don't think anything broke per se, but okay. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've got any feedback as what went well, what you'd like to see more of, please email us or contact us. Follow us on Twitter or Facebook, usual addresses. I've showed you the YouTube channel. I will try and post the usable bits from this. I mentioned before, in the UK, I think most dealers will be reopening by appointment only from Monday, and we're going to be doing that. We'll carry on doing our servicing as we've been doing throughout lockdown, but we'll be having people back in for active demonstrations. So I encourage you to come and see us, or go and see your local dealer. They'll be delighted to see you. And that's it. So all I can say is thanks for watching, and give us some more suggestions for what we do next time. Thank you very much.